Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Good morning. First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course a unified command who is present here. What I'm asking at this time are prayers for those who have lost their lives in the city of New Orleans due to this tragedy.
Last night, we had over 300 officers out here. And because of the intentional mindset of this perpetrator who went around our barricades in order to conduct this, he was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did. Because of the nature and the indices that we have on the scene, and we have enough information that the FBI will be taking over this investigation. And with that, I am going to be asking, this is the assistant agent in charge, this is Agent Duncan, Special Agent Duncan, and she has taken over this case on behalf of us and the FBI. As always, we will be in partnership with all of our partners. But Agent Duncan, if you want to have a few words for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Alethea Duncan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for FBI New Orleans. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on.
There it is. Well, first of all, folks, say a prayer for the victims and their families of this terrorist attack in New Orleans yesterday. This is devastating way to start the new year. But quite frankly, you should expect more of it. Be vigilant, report things to your sheriff, and pay attention to what's going on. Be prepared to defend yourselves and exercise your right. And there it is. I'll say it again. The government just doesn't like the truth these days. So it's up to we the people to get the truth out. Welcome to Truth Thursday, the first show of 2025, and the Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. The first 24 hours of 2025 have revealed once more that the government responsible for protecting us doesn't like telling us the truth. I am increasingly puzzled by this behavior, especially when we see so-called FBI leaders openly say they need the public's help in a press conference that followed the one you just saw yesterday. And they just lied to us twice. First, definitively saying the New Orleans attack was not terrorism, and then hiding the ISIS flag presence during the attack from the public. These actions are dumb and dangerous, but they're not surprising, as this willful hiding of information is rampant throughout all levels of our government these days. And tomorrow, January 3rd, Speaker Mike Johnson may see a significant challenge to his reelection because his team hides information from us. Well, we, the American people, have access to at least one platform where truthful information can be published and That is why yesterday we saw the truth about the attacks brought out faster and more reliably than any government or regime media entity has been able to do before. It's not perfect, and folks need to be careful not to spread false information, but crowdsourcing emergency information is evolving before our very eyes. And as I've discussed on recent panels and TV interviews and on my own show the last few weeks, it's up to us to see and share anything out of the ordinary and report it to our local sheriff. That's the most reliable law enforcement we have these days as we run up to the president's inauguration. Because the same entities that wanted President Trump to lose in 2024 and tried to put him in jail and his supporters in jail and did put a lot of his supporters in prison are still working to prevent him from taking office. We are witnessing what many of us in the national security profession have been warning about, a kinetic internal operation to disrupt or delay the next administration's taking power. Exactly what we were accused of doing that we didn't do in January of 2021. Well, my guest today to discuss all this is Tim Young, a comedian, show host, speaker, author, and lawyer. Tim, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and thanks for coming on right after the holiday. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on for a fun topic, too. What a great time, huh?
Yeah, well, I led with the fact that you're a comedian, so I'm not opposed to having some comic relief because, man, this is really depressing, man.
Can we oh, sorry. The New Orleans police chief, right? So this lady, she's like 66 years old. She's this elderly, frail mess of a liberal who was fired from the Oakland Police Department, who didn't realize today in a press conference that they had barricades that were supposed to be up to be able to prevent attacks on people driving on sidewalks, and also who ran over two people herself in her own squad car in August. This woman is not qualified to be there. She is the epitome of a woke DEI hire. I understand a lot of people think that it means a person of color, but it also could mean an elderly woman who prescribes to all of those tenets of DEI and wokeness. And that's exactly what she is. She has failed upward. At one point, she was considered to be the head of the Chicago Police Department. This woman shouldn't have a job.
Oh, you're absolutely right, man. You beat me to it. I don't know if anybody noticed or not, but all three of them, in my opinion, are DEI hires. And I'm not picking on ladies. I'm not picking on people of color. I'm just saying I've watched the performance now. The assistant SAC there from FBI New Orleans was the first time I've seen her performance, but I only need one look at that one. She lied to us within 30 seconds of opening her mouth. And a press conference is supposed to be to give the public the facts in a situation like this. And if there's help you need from the public, to tell them what help you need and be honest with them enough to do things like, I don't know, maybe show them what the IEDs look like so they can be on the lookout. If you have description of other suspects, maybe put that out there when you're asking for help. But no, the first thing she does is lie to us.
Hey,
what the heck is going on?
Yeah, pay attention. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And not to get into this. Look, I've been called a racist enough, so let's start leaning into this. She had a Ebonics line that she threw in there. What did she say? It was like a was instead of a were, and it was just kind of like, we need our brightest and best out there when we have this stuff going on, when these terrible attacks are happening on American soil. I don't want to hear Ebonic English. I don't want to hear, redneck, slack-jawed English either. I want somebody out there who is formal, who is trained, and who is the best that we've got. And yesterday was a total mess. And at the very beginning, I don't know if you know this or not, or noticed this or not, but when the lady, the first lady who spoke, when she said that it was a terrorist attack, apparently she wasn't supposed to say that, because if you watch and you replay that clip, Ann Kirkpatrick, the elderly, frail police chief, freaks out and looks around when she hears that it's a terrorist attack. Like, she is more concerned about the narrative than anything else, and it's very, very clear from her physical reactions.
Yeah, that was the mayor of New Orleans, Cantrell, I think her name is. Good on. I was going to compliment her on that part of what she talked about, because she was right. Obviously they'd been discussing it and had agreed that it was a terrorist attack, or she wouldn't have led with that. So I'm glad that she did that. And what surprises me, though, is the chief lays it all out there and says we have enough to call the FBI in. Once you have enough to call the FBI in, you've decided it's a terrorist attack, and you should be talking about your decision. It's just amazing. And then the ISIS flag thing. Now it's being reported that the police officers were told to cover it up. There's some question about that when you look at the video of the truck when he makes the right turn in the corner, right in front of the police car that's supposed to be blocking the sidewalk, by the way. It looks like the flag is covered in that video shot, but it's really difficult to tell because of the lighting and even some of the video after the truck was stopped and the perp's been shot. Frames of the video don't show the flag and the pole, and then you keep going, and then the flag and the pole start to appear out of the shadows. So it's difficult to tell, but the point is, though, they hid the evidence from the public. Why not tell the public? Especially in the afternoon press conference, they asked for the public's help. They never showed me what the IED looked like, and they knew it was bombs put in coolers, the two that they had that they knew were real. Well, why not tell people what to look for? There are tens of thousands of people, Tim. I don't know if you've been to the French Quarter in New Orleans, right around Jackson Square where the cathedral is and all that, but there are tens of thousands of people. And on New Year's Eve, at the beginning of New Year, the Mass in the St. Louis Cathedral there is packed, standing room only. Every one of them. I don't know how many they do these days, but I've seen videos from them. And one of these devices was there. People should be told what to look for.
Yeah, no, we're fortunate that more people weren't lost because of that attack. But I'm really kind of tired of this whole FBI, the woke FBI thing, where they cover up. I mean, we did. I will give them credit. We learned more about the terrorists yesterday than we basically learned about the first Trump shooter and all that time since then. I mean, this is absolutely insane, the bias from the FBI. I don't know. I was going to tweet today, when's the last time you trusted your federal government? I can't tell you the last time I've trusted the federal government or the FBI for that matter. They are a biased organization who prioritizes villainizing people who pray outside of Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, villainizes parents who speak at school board meetings. They prioritize that stuff. They sent 15 agents to investigate a rope in Bubba Wallace's garage. Remember, it ended up being a garage pulley. Our FBI needs to be cleaned up and cleaned out. Our law enforcement, our woke. If you live in New Orleans and you see the reaction from this police chief, and you're right, give credit to the mayor there. But these things happen in blue cities because they're allowed to, and because criminals no longer have the fear of being arrested or what could happen to them if they commit the crime. And I just hope that the residents wake up. I think they are. I think this last election really proved that with the shift in voting over top of, it was too big to rig. So like the shift in voting overcame what was potential cheating as well. But I don't think it's shifted enough yet. And I don't know when people will wake up. What's it take? What's it going to take for somebody to wake up here and actually pay attention and vote out these awful, corrupt DEI governments?
Yeah, I mean, just take the assistant special agent in charge there, Agent Duncan. She was continued after that dismal performance early in the morning. She went back to it for another try at it in the afternoon press conference, and it's just, and that's where you really notice that they were trying to hide the ISIS flag and not talking about what the IEDs look like. And folks, look, I did the bomb disposal thing when I was a very young person in the military. I know what needs to be done. And I was an installation commander my last job in the military. So I prided myself in always being transparent with the public, even though I had over 100 different units on that base. And most of them have highly classified missions that you couldn't really talk about much detail. But I could always inform the public when I needed their help or when I needed them to know that what the real risks were about any type of incident and those kind of things. And we had incidents in and out of the base that we had to do that with. So I just can't fathom why government officials want to continue to lie to the American people, especially today. And I think the reason why we do know of all this stuff that came out is because the public on X started calling them out and pointing out the facts that they were able to get their hands on. We got to take a break. When we come back, though, we'll hear from Senator John Kennedy about why he's not going to tell us what he knows. And that's even more ridiculous. I'll be right back with Tim Young on the Rob Maness Show here on World YouTube.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com. It helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Just a final question here for not just people in Louisiana that are watching, but people coast to coast that are watching tonight. Are you getting the sense that there's any threat of any other potential attacks tonight on any other major cities?
I can't answer that. I can, but I won't.
Is New Orleans safe tonight?
Yes, but we're still in the process of tightening up security. We're still in the process of doing everything that we possibly can. The governor's called out the National Guard. We've got more FBI coming. We've got Homeland Security people. We've got state troopers who've done an awesome job. We've got the NOPD. We're doing everything we can. But like I say, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's accurate.
Okay.
Back to the Maness Show and the truth. That's all the public needs and wants from our government. We're their bosses. We expect our government officials to tell us the truth, especially in a time of crisis, in these times where even a person like me and others like me who've spent 30 plus years of our lives being part of the federal government find themselves in the position where I don't know when the last time I trusted anybody speaking on behalf of the federal government or even state and local government was, quite honestly. And my guest today is Tim Young. And Tim, you have to forgive Senator Kennedy's Southern accent, my friend. He is a bit redneckish sounding, but he is a Rhodes Scholar and a very smart man. But what troubled me about that clip is this. Exactly what we were talking about in the first segment, what I spoke to. As a commander of a major installation, I prided myself in keeping the public informed as much as I possibly could. And for a senator to be briefed on something that he's told he can't tell the public on, well, unless you're part of the Intelligence Committee, and he is not, as far as I know, then if it's public enough for him to get the information and important enough for him, then the rest of us ought to have it too, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird that he said that. Yeah, I can't tell you if there are other threats in other cities. Don't you want people to be vigilant? Don't you want people to, again, see something, say something? Remember that from back in the day? Shouldn't you want people to keep an eye out to be able to help protect themselves and their communities? I mean, why can't you tell us if there's something else out there? Which, by the way, means that there's something else out there. It means there's more threats coming. I don't understand what the almost political correctness is all about this. How dare you? You might point the finger at the wrong person. I'd rather point the finger at the wrong person than have no one pointing fingers at anything and have the chance of being attacked again. So it's insulting. And by the way, for people who can't see this, people who are on spaces, do senators and our political or public officials all have like a costume for when there's tragedy? They put on a jacket with patches on it or something else to make it look like they're more concerned or whatever. I mean, I think it's kind of silly that they change outfits. You know this. You're a man who actually wore a real uniform and served this country. But, Kamala had her jacket that she put on that was really freshly pressed when she visited North Carolina. Here he is in some sort of jacket with patches on it. I mean, he may have served or whatever at some point. I don't know what his history is. I really don't. I don't care either. But he shows up in a different costume because it's a quote unquote tragedy for him. They have to wear the tragedy jacket for that. And I just think it's so inauthentic at this point, and it's annoying.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a little bit of insight here. I got a question through a text message. Hey, did Senator Kennedy serve in the military? And they sent me a still of the picture of him doing that interview. And honestly, I don't have any idea. I don't think he did serve in the military, but probably the Louisiana State Police or somebody from the Guard handed him that as I think they were probably flying around on a military helicopter yesterday for a little bit, which gets kind of cold. But yeah, you're right. You're right. People do that. They do that because the president gets a leather jacket from the military because he's the commander in chief. And ever since that started happening on a regular basis, you've seen more and more of this crap because people got to put their disaster clothes on or their crisis clothes on to make them look real, right?
I mean, it's one thing if you actually rushed out to the scene, right? And you didn't have time to put on a suit and you just kind of went out and you're wearing whatever you were wearing that day because you're actually concerned about the community. But there's actually time that was taken to pick out that outfit so that he could go and put on his little presentation with the jacket with the patches on. I'm over it. Like maybe a couple of years ago, I'm a totally different person than I was even, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like it's so significantly different than what I was years and years ago because I wouldn't have paid attention to this stuff then. I would have been like, oh, look, he's prepared and this is whatever. But it's all optics. It's all theater. And it's just now at this point, when you have the FBI lying about whether or not it was a terrorist event to start, then you have him saying, oh, I can't tell you if other stuff is happening. Everyone should be furious. And it just adds exclamation points to how furious I am when I see people take the time to put on their little jackets to show up in costume.
Yeah, because it makes us question everything from the intelligence level of the individuals, the competence level, like with Agent Duncan there, which I'm sure she's done some things that have gotten her to deserve that position, even though she's probably a DEI hire, as some people might call her. But to whatever happened to, look, we're investigating this as a terrorist act. What's wrong with that? That's exactly what should have come out of her mouth. But no, you're not going to get that. Well, let me ask you this, man, and we're going to open the Islamophobia accusation thing up a little bit, and that doesn't bother me either. Look, we're not Islamophobic. We just don't like Americans getting killed by bad guys. Let me just be frank there, folks. But in this particular instance, the perp, we know he was he's actually a reservist in the United States Army. They say he's an HR guy, which for us military guys and gals says that he's in personnel. And everybody in the military is trained to use firearms, et cetera. They're not all experts in explosives and those kind of things. So this guy is a soldier. He has gone jihadist. He posted 5 videos, one of which clearly stated that he was a member of ISIS and a supporter of ISIS now. Whether you believe that's a government op or whether he's real and sincere about this, he's dead now, obviously. But when you hear those things and you think back to the short history of the beginning of Iraqi freedom, Tim, where a jihadist sergeant in the army killed a good friend of mine on night 1 of Iraqi freedom by throwing a grenade in his and another guy's tent, killed both of them eventually. And then you see that Major Hassan guy who was a medical officer in the United States Army as the Fort Hood jihadi assassin. And now this, I mean, I'm spotting a trend here, but Lloyd Austin, what has he been doing since 2021? He's been looking for white extremists inside the U.S. military and not looking for this kind of stuff.
Well, he also took a break and didn't tell anybody about it. He was gone for a couple of weeks. Remember that. Look, I'm tired of the semantics game, and it's going to take a lot of people to get over the semantics game because using terms that end in phobic, which means fear of, to talk about not liking a group is interesting, and it's an interesting play on words, and I think we need to stop using that. I'm not Islamophobic. I don't like a religion that wants to end people who want to end Western civilization. And the people who believe teachings that say that you must basically slaughter people who don't prescribe to your same faith. I think it's disgusting. I think we've let too much of it into our own culture. I think the UK is learning a lot right now about their bad decisions over there, but they're still locking up white people because, how dare you put a meme up that might talk about the open borders there that might offend someone that's busy raping people. We need to start taking a real stand here. And I give credit, again, this is me 5 years ago. I've liked Tommy Robinson personally. I never really prescribed to everything he started saying when it started, but he was right. And I think we need to start taking a look at the threat to Western civilization from this group of people who chant death to the West, who chant death to America, who want us dead. And it is not, if you want to say you're Islamophobic, yeah, you're afraid of a group of people who have now snuck probably across both our northern and southern border to try to commit terrorist attacks and harm Americans. That's fine. But I'm not phobic. I don't like those people. I hate people who hate America. And that's where we need to be with this. I'm tired of playing the left semantics games with this, and I think more and more people need to stand up against it.
Yeah, because it opens us up to have our own principles and philosophies used against us, like freedom of religion. If you buy into that, they got to be able to worship as they please. Well, if your worship means that you want to destroy the civilization that you're living in, and you want to kill people at will in things like honor killings, even your own kids, then that goes beyond freedom of religion, in my opinion. And we've got to take it. We've got to take action to prevent that kind of thing. After 9/11, we did a lot of undercover work inside the mosques that were suspected of harboring folks that were on the 9/11 team. We've done a lot of work identifying mosques that are what I call bad actors that produce jihadis here in the United States. But all of that's been left by the wayside because either people are afraid of it, and we've got reports that this individual, Jabbar, I think was his last name, was released from active duty once in 2014 because of his reports to his chain of command, but we cannot get the information on what it was that he was released for from active duty. Then he was allowed back into the reserves, and we're getting some reporting that he was, there were reports to the chain of command about his behavior, but they were afraid to act on it because they didn't want to be called racist or Islamophobist.
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm over it. And it's coming from the same people too. The people who push this Islamophobia idea and the semantics are the people who said Christian nationalism is a threat to our country. Remember, they beat that drum over and over again. Christian nationalism is this big evil in our country and must be stopped. When I must have missed when there have been terror attacks based on Jesus' teachings. I must have missed that. Maybe you can, or somebody who's listening right now can inform me when there's been a terror attack based on Jesus' teachings in modern times here, as opposed to what's happened with Islam. We need to have a real talk about it, because if we can't have a real talk about it, it doesn't come to an end, and we don't stop it. And it's scary to me. I'm semantic phobic. What's like the I'm afraid that when we lose this culture war, when we're not allowed to say things, when they use our morals and American values and Christian values against us by saying, hey, we don't want to offend people, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, that we actually make our country more at risk and more susceptible, just like you said.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It really is troubling when I hear that officers in the military are hesitant because they're afraid they're going to be called racist. When the military that I came from and was a commander in 3 times, so which means that I should have had IG complaints against me if I was the racist that I'm accused of being, or the sexist, or the Islamophobe. But I was one of the few senior commanders that left the service without having to wait to be cleared by the inspector general. So it just really troubles me that we have this occur, and then it results in 15 dead young Americans. And the young lady from Gulfport, Mississippi, where I live, was just 18 years old, getting ready to start college. And it's just tragic that people that should know better, that are paid to make good, solid decisions that are objective and outside of the political realm or the social realm, failed to do it, and it results in this. So we got to take another break. Till we come back, I want to get your take on some technology in this whole Cybertruck attack at Trump Tower in Vegas. There's some really unusual things about it. I wanted to talk to you about, see what your thoughts are, especially from some of the stuff we're seeing on social media. We'll be right back with Tim Young on the Rob Maness Show.
Investigators have identified the suspect as 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger, who had multiple addresses associated with him in Colorado Springs. FBI investigators are conducting a search warrant of one of Livelsberger's residences. ATF has been brought in to assist. Federal sources said the suspect in Las Vegas and the suspect behind the fatal attack in New Orleans both served in the military, and the FBI is investigating a connection between them.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. The truth. That's all we can expect. But the government continuously fails to give the American people the truth, even when they ask for the public's assistance, like what just happened yesterday in New Orleans from the lead FBI agent at the time. The failure to give us the truth. Well, the second incident that occurred yesterday appears to be some type of attack using a Tesla Cybertruck. That perpetrator has been identified, at least tentatively, by the local authorities, the sheriff's office there, as a master sergeant in the United States Army Special Operations Forces Green Beret, who has a brand new baby from Colorado Springs and was home on leave from a trip to Germany when all of this occurred. My guest today is Tim Young, and Tim is a comedian, an author, an attorney, and a political commentator that knows a lot about culture, and he's not afraid to shoot straight with us. And that's why I wanted to get him on to talk about some of this stuff. And Tim, I mean, this one, Tim, let's start with the Cybertruck. Really poor choice of a vehicle to use for a car bomb, to be honest with you.
Hey, if the car catches on fire, you're inside of it, you're a goner. I just want to let you know that. That's just that should be a warning to Cybertruck people, maybe not to smoke inside their Cybertruck just in case something goes sideways, because it took a hell of an explosion and just survived it. By the way, Rob, what were we supposed to talk about today before yesterday happened? It was a totally different, like we had a much nicer topic before all this stuff happened.
We're going to talk about that in the next segment. We're going to talk about the speaker's race for Speaker of the House. That's what we were supposed to talk about this hour. And I saved the last segment because there was just enough of this stuff in order to, because this is important. It's hot in front of the public. I want to get good information to the public. I want the public to hear from people like me and you about these incidents and what we're thinking about, because we're part of the solution now, much more than we were 5 years ago, as you've brought up a couple of times. And we have to be part of the solution. I mean, we're the media. We're the real media and the real press in this country. So, yeah, we're going to talk about Mike Johnson and Tom Massey and some other folks that I love in the next segment. But so the Cybertruck thing. My millennial children are the ones that like Tesla. One of them drives a Tesla car. He was telling me, "Oh my gosh, this thing is a tank, Dad. It's bulletproof. the video you've seen of Elon hitting it with a machine gun is real. It's not faked. And I think this explosion yesterday showed it. The guy had it in the bed of the truck. Now, we can talk about the device itself as related to a Special Operations Forces Master Sergeant who's on active duty, and the difference on what he would do, should have done. But the blast was directed up so much that truck was only a few feet from the glass doors of Trump Tower there, and it didn't even shatter the glass.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, that thing really is a tank. And it what was it full of? Like, it seemed like fireworks were part of it on top of all the other improvised explosive devices. I think it came out today that the guy also shot himself before that happened. But it was crazy yesterday. And by the way, I have to give credit to Elon again here with community notes. So I have been actually granted. I'm a rater now on the back end of community notes. I'm shocked that they let somebody like me rate. But they've created a community back there. And when you take a look at, and look, I know there's lefties there. I know there's now, if you got people like me, there's a lot of people there. Everybody's anonymous. But if you've got people like us back there rating things, I think you can trust the information coming out a lot of times with community notes. But when these events happen, and it was terrible. Yesterday was one after another again, terrible events. A lot of people post things on Twitter and X. Sorry, I'll call it X from now on, to try to get attention for themselves and try to get clicks and try to cash in. And it's very obvious. And I'm really glad the community notes is there to correct them on that stuff. I never thought, again, like I feel like I'm growing up. Like I was really frustrated yesterday, and I spent a lot of time on the back end and community notes rating things that were coming out that were just blatant lies, or trying to spin things, or trying to hide the truth. I mean, again, I don't know who else is back there anonymously rating things, but it really seems like the ratings that come out are pretty fair and balanced when they come out.
Well, I have to say that I'm also allowed to do that too. Amazingly enough, they let me rate community notes, and that's one of my favorite things to do, because it's so obvious that when the lefties come on or the government people come on and they're trying to spin something and everything, it just makes the job easier to rate the things as not helpful and those kind of things. I mean, folks, if you're going to write a community note, use it for the purpose that it's intended to. And you got to give Musk credit for that. And you also got to give him credit for, in this particular incident, the sheriff's department lead, who has spoken the most that I've seen about this incident, actually gave him credit and thanked him for giving them the data. But he also tweeted about it. And I'm sorry, Elon, I still say tweet, and I don't give a damn what you think about it. But X is a great platform for getting information like this. He tweeted about it and said, "There's no way that this was a battery explosion." And who else to say that other than the smartest man in the world when it comes to car batteries and the construction of that particular vehicle? And he actually said it. He said this is likely a terrorist type explosion and attack. And the battery is not going to look like that or have that kind of a effect that you see in this video. And then he gave him all of the video from all the charging stations that the truck had to use to get from Colorado to Las Vegas, which I think it tells us a couple of things. One, that Elon's he's a good guy from a law and order perspective, even though he may be still a little bit progressive. And everything. And I'm not an acolyte type person as far as like fanboy kind of thing, but I do appreciate his intellect and his ability to see through the BS. Don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you on that one. I've talked a lot. That one, you're totally right on that, by the way.
Yeah. Let me just say something about this potential perpetrator. And honestly, I haven't nailed it down in my own mind whether this body they have is this gentleman. He's supposed to be an active duty U.S. Army Master Sergeant, which is an E7 that's been selected to the next rank of E8, which is the second highest rank for enlisted people in the U.S. Armed Forces. And he's a special operations guy, has been doing special ops in various capacities for a long, long time. So he's at the pinnacle of his career. He's married, has a brand new baby, has been on some kind of deployment to Germany and was home on leave during this time period. So I just have a lot of questions because my soft brothers that do talk on X are talking about this and asking the same kinds of questions. Because let's take the bomb, for instance. He used large fireworks mortars, which are the kind that you drop into a cardboard tube and they shoot up and have all the great, beautiful bomb bursts and those kind of things, folks, they're very powerful. They're the most powerful firework you can buy on the market. What he didn't do, though, is he didn't use this substance called tannerite, which has a much higher brisance, which means the ability to create a blast, a sharp blast, that you can get at like your local feed store, and I got a nephew that routinely takes it out and shoots it to make it blow up on the farm when we're out shooting, and it's got a lot more power than these fireworks would. So he didn't do that. As far as I could tell, he didn't mix any of that in there, which would be easy to buy, and it's not tracked. He put like Coleman gas, the white gas that's used for Coleman stoves and lanterns and those kind of things. He had several cans of that in there. It looked like he had a gasoline can and some other things in there. And then I think there were probably some small arms. When I look at the video, it looks like small arms cooking off, bullets and stuff flying out. But it could be just small fireworks too. Anyway, a special operations guy isn't going to do two things. He's not going to pick a Cybertruck that's armored to put a weak bomb like that in the bed of it when he's trying to make some kind of impact on the front of Trump Tower's entryway there. So none of that makes sense to me and the other military guys. I mean, what do you think about that? You're not a military guy, right? I mean,
no,
you're just
I'm not at all.
a regular civilian, and that's why I wanted to ask you, what do you think?
You shouldn't be giving people directions on how to make the bombs more effective, Rob. So you're like, hey, just go down to the local feed store, get yourself some tannerite. That really does a lot more damage. Why didn't they do that? Don't do that, Rob. Come on, man. You
can find that on every anarchist cookbook on the web.
Here we
all
go.
You got to just type it in.
Written by Colonel Rob Maness, the anarchist cookbook for effective January 1st terrorist attacks. Look, I'm glad the guy was dumb. I'm glad that he didn't use effective things. But, on the flip side, too, I'm going to add to this story. You see the AP saying, a Cybertruck caught on fire, right? Again, a truck drove through the crowd in New Orleans. A Cybertruck caught on fire. Their first move was to, number one, blame the truck. But two, they were hoping and they wanted to take advantage of the fact that it was a Cybertruck to somehow hurt Elon's business. And that's, you don't hate people listening to this. You don't hate your government and you don't hate your media enough. And you need to be paying attention to the spin on this stuff. I think we've almost become accustomed to it at this point. We're waiting for it to happen. You should be pretty offended by it. And we're real lucky that the guy who tried to attack the Trump hotel yesterday was an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with you on it because of quality of people they put into the special ops Q course at Fort Bragg is pretty high. So I don't know if I agree with you on whether he's an idiot, but he made some dumb moves for damn sure. Yeah. And it makes me wonder, though. Was this guy really conscious in the front of that truck when this was set off? Did that truck drive itself up to that point and stop and set itself off through a remote controlled detonation? Because those are the kind of questions that an old EOD guy like me is asking. And that's the kind of question the special operations operators that do this stuff for a living and know these people are asking too. And those kind of questions have to be answered. If they haven't done DNA testing on this body, they darn sure need to, just to make sure that it actually is him. Because there's going to be lots of conspiracy theories for years and years and years about this if the government doesn't tell us the truth, Well, next segment, Tim. Go ahead.
I didn't think about the self-driving part. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and Elon should have that data. So somebody knows. They haven't talked about it publicly yet, but he's probably given that data over to law enforcement. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. But those questions really do need to be answered. So the next segment, last segment of the show, we're going to talk about what I wanted to talk to you about in the first place, which is the speaker's race. Mike Johnson's got some challenges. And I want to talk about why and talk about whether he should be supported or not with Tim Young, my friend and comedian, attorney, and political commentator. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Why do we need to think about having to survive something when we have an obvious option here? Mike Johnson has done a good job. Look, anytime the numbers are this close, it's going to be a very difficult job. And there are things that aren't going to go smoothly every single time. And we just have to accept that. Johnson's done a good job. The president trusts him. The president won the election, and a lot of Republicans won because of Donald Trump and the agenda he put forward. So what Donald Trump is saying is, get me a speaker that I trust and that I can work with so we can begin to pass my agenda. That ought to be a good enough reason for any member of the House Republican Conference. We've got a very closely divided House. The only way to move anything forward here is to have teamwork, to stick together. Republicans need to start that process with the Speaker's vote.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and we've been talking about why the government continues to lie to the American people, whether it's a crisis like what we saw happen in New Orleans and Las Vegas and even New York City yesterday, when you have the folks that should be asking for our help and giving us the best information that they have at the time so we can help, or it's Speaker Mike Johnson, whose staff lies to the American people about what's in a critical bill or about how the approach is going to be to continuing resolutions and the continue funding Joe Biden's terrible, absolute terrible policies. Well, when they lie, then people want to boot them out. And they're not booting the staff out. They want to boot the speaker out. And my guest today is Tim Young. And we were supposed to spend an hour talking about this, Tim. But you heard there in that little snippet, I picked that for a reason. Jennings is going through all the reasons why the pro Mike Johnson side say he should be reelected. But Tom Massey points out that in those discussions, they're never talking about why Mike Johnson's the guy to be able to effectively get the Trump agenda accomplished as quickly as possible through leadership, because he hasn't displayed that leadership. So that's where the difference is, I think. I just had to get your take on this because there is some humor in this.
Here's the problem. I'm not laughing. My problem with this is, God, this is like you bring me on for the most serious shit today, Rob. Sorry, I swear. I look at this and I'm like, who's going to replace him, right? Who do we have that's a Republican who would make a difference? And unfortunately, as much as I like a Byron Donalds and, you've got Jim Jordan, who seems to talk more than he does anything too, but he's fun to watch. You have all these guys who might be great, but when they get in that position, it's like their hands are tied and they can't do anything anyway. We have a very slim majority, and this whole situation really frustrates me because we should replace Mike Johnson, right? I think he's a wet paper towel or whatever you call it, a wet blanket. I don't know the term there. He's not really much different than Kevin McCarthy, and I don't think your next speaker, if you were to replace Mike Johnson, would be any different than either one of those guys either. I think we suck. And I think that we, from the ground up, we need to be electing more and more actual conservatives who care about, and populists who care about the American people more than pushing and growing our government. And I don't think that there is a solution here. I think that's the real problem. If they replace him with somebody else, if there's an election on the floor of the House and they keep going back and forth and there's 15 elections like there were with McCarthy, ultimately it becomes just political theater. It's sort of like that spending bill that went through. They cut it down, what was it, a couple hundred pages, they cut it down. But it's more theater than anything else. You throw everything in, you see if it's going to pass, then you make yourself appear to be a hero, even though the spending was increased and you expanded our federal government even more. We're not winning here, and we're not going to win for a very long time. And it's going to take folks getting better candidates in from the grassroots and from the ground floor up. So that we can get out of the situation. But we are stuck. It's Mike Johnson or the next Mike Johnson. That's all this is. And it's all political theater at this point. So my not very confident kind of giving up stance on this is just put the guy back in and see what we can get out of it, and see if he actually listens to Trump and we can get the Trump agenda fixed. But on the same hand, start getting real, better people in Congress that will actually continue to be fighters for the people when they get into office, instead of being selfish a-holes who, get themselves caught up in some sort of scandal or suddenly become the best traders that there's ever been in the history of the stock market. Just get better people in who are real people who can make a difference, and then we don't have to deal with characters like Mike Johnson. But for right now, it's Mike Johnson or the next Mike Johnson.
Yeah, it's what do you think about the folks? And this is kind of where I'm at. Is that, look, Donald Trump spent 4 years fighting on multiple fronts to get reelected. And if he thinks that he can get things done with this guy, I mean, he did an unusual step and came out and gave a full-throated endorsement to him being reelected speaker. I mean, why not give him a chance? Like Jennings said at the beginning of this segment, why not give Donald Trump a chance to see what he can get done with this guy and move as fast as we can? I mean, I know Mike. I've known him a long time. He voted quite dramatically differently as a regular congressman, more like an America First guy. Not always, but more like one than he's doing now. I mean, heck, he was the deciding vote on re-up and FISA, which should be abolished completely in this country. So, I guess that's where I'm at, is that, the president has had this long fight. Let's give him a shot. Let him give a shot and see if he can work with this guy and get his agenda done. But you're right, man. We have to stop this at some point. I ran for U.S. Senate the first time starting in mid 2013. You know what I ran on? And the reason I got in the race was people were telling me, especially veterans that recruited me in the state of Louisiana, that these people were being elected, campaigning on one thing and then doing another once they got in office. And we have to stop electing people that will do that. That's one of the reasons why I like Tom Massey. No matter what people say about Congressman Massey, I'm not going to turn on him and try to primary him like was done when he was like the one holdout on the big bill that the President Trump wanted everybody to pass. I forget what they called it, but it was a huge spending bill, and Tom was like, "No, I'm not doing it. There's no reason to do this." And they tried to primary him, and he still won with like 80% of the vote. But I'm not going to turn on him when I know that he's got the right position from the perspective of long term for the American people. Just like you said, we have got to get to the point where we get more people in office that are like Tom Massey and less people in office that are like the Kevin McCarthy's or even the Mike Johnsons of the world. And we've got to go there.
Yeah,
well, we finally have some. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
We finally have some hands up in the audience here. I wanted to take a question, but go ahead. All right, Shell, go ahead and give us a question from the audience.
We have Texas Elizabeth, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Colonel, Tim. If they start that today or tomorrow, and they don't have anybody in office, which is what scares me, then we're not going to be able to have the confirmations we need. Am I correct on this?
I didn't understand the question.
Did you hear her, Tim? She's asking if the confirmations will be held up if the Speaker of the House election goes over and over like it did before.
No, it's in the
you're talking
Senate.
The Senate.
Senate. But I mean, honestly, like we really take a look at the confirmations of the Senate are just the tip of the iceberg. And like, if you think things are going to change overnight, you're sadly mistaken. So it's going to take a long, long time to get things fixed in all these departments. And it's going to take staff. And I know they are very slow right now at staffing up. It's going to take months before we get places staffed up to the point that things can fix. I mean, we can get, even with those Trump appointments, I think are great, by the way, these cabinet appointments. I think they're all great. I even liked Matt Gaetz. They can't do it on their own. You're going to have a guy in there against a full bureaucracy that's going to slow walk and not listen to them, just outright not listen to these folks. Remember, there was a holdout at DOJ. I remember I forget the name of the lady. She like held out and refused to follow Trump's orders back in 2017. This is going to drag for a long time, and things aren't going to fix overnight.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the Senate staffs are going to drag on the confirmations. And you're absolutely right. I'm concerned because they don't even have all of the service secretaries announced yet. I think there's still one to go, unless I missed it. They don't have beyond the top 2 or 3 in each department settled on yet. And it's those positions underneath those top 2 or 3 that are going to be doing the muscle work of cleaning house, identify, and they've got to go in and identify what I call the resistors, and what you're talking about, people that are going to put up a flat hand to the agenda and the policies and say, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, all of those identifications, the processes for removing them, all have to be settled before you can actually get anything done, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long process. It's not sexy. Like I was going to say earlier when we were going back and forth and talking over each other, I don't have any sexy answers for things today. I don't have these like talking point, bullet point, rah, cheer for things answers. Like I wish it was get rid of Mike Johnson or don't get rid of Mike Johnson. There isn't a solution. There isn't a solution to a lot of the problems that are going on right now. And a lot of it is long, dragged out process to start fixing things. I don't think Trump can fix and reduce this government in his term. I think he can get the ball rolling. And I think it comes down to a J.D. Vance or whoever's next to clear it out for another 4 to 8 years. We are in for a long haul here. The damage that has been done by the bureaucracy and the Democrats is deep, and it will take us a long time to dig out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The bench development that J.D. Vance's selection as VP nominee and now going to be the VP, I think was a great move and a great step forward in going down that path. But man, we have a lot of personnel to develop over the next 4 years. Look, Trump's got to get legislation passed. He can't do what he did the first time and use almost all executive orders with very little legislation getting passed, because it's legislation that puts things in a more permanent place than they would be otherwise, right?
Yeah, and you have such a slim margin that you're going to have, I'll call them a-holes in Congress, in the House of Representatives, and in the Senate, that will want pork for their own districts put into things before they pass very common sense legislation that Trump needs to get passed. We're in for a very stressful couple of years here. Nancy Pelosi was much different in her leadership, and Democrats have it more together than Republicans. I don't understand why, but they're all lockstep. She had a very slim margin in the House, and she got everything she wanted, and they accomplished everything they really wanted to accomplish. Same within the Senate. They're able to work together. But our guys, we're all independent thinkers, and we all fight against each other when it comes down to passing things. They need to get themselves in lockstep, at least for the first 2 years, and get all of Trump's policies passed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, we can't be 100% doom and gloom. We've got about a little bit less than a minute left, Tib. What are some of the humorous things we should expect to see, and how should we make them loud and boisterous when we do see them, because we don't see them very often these days? So what should we be looking for from a political perspective going forward on the humor side?
Well, you've got Adam Schiff, who got his Senate race, right? So like you've got that clown that's going to have a lot of things to run his mouth about. You're going to see Kamala Harris probably try to flail in the end days of her political career, because I think Democrats are going to get rid of her, and she's going to have a lot to say on the way out the door. And of course, Eric Swalwell, who craps his pants in the halls of the House of Representatives, has not gone anywhere either, and he continues to yap. So they're going to be losing their minds over the next 4 years, and we're going to have fun with it.
All right, man. Well, Monday will be More War Monday. Thank you, Tim Young, for joining us today. You can find him at Tim Runs His Mouth on X. We appreciate you, brother. God bless you. Keep the country in your prayers, and keep looking for the funny part, because that's why we just wanted to have Tim on with us. And we'll be talking to Dr. Waleed Fares on Monday, hopefully, about what the situation post-Syria across the Middle East. I'm Rob Maness on Worldview Tube.